Hey everybody, my name is Dan Harms. I am a youth minister here in the Diocese of Richmond. I'm at St. Bridget's in Richmond. I have been here since 2012. So almost 9 years or something like that I've been a youth minister. And it's been amazing. It's been an amazing adventure. I'm really excited to be able to speak to you and just share some different thoughts about youth ministry and about just kind of the experiences that you might run into or things to kind of consider in youth ministry. For a lot of people, youth ministry is their very first job, which is a great thing, but it is a very difficult job to walk into when you're completely green, right? Unless you have a really particular personality that lends itself towards having a real clear vision and being able to execute on a clear vision. It can be easy for youth ministers to kind of get bowled over a little bit in their ministries. And so there are a handful of things that I want to share. Number one is that you really cannot do this job. You really cannot do this job without having an active faith life. And I'm sure that you'll hear that from many different people, and you'll hear that over and over again. But it really is genuinely true. The number of times that you really genuinely do need the grace of God and the grace of the Holy Spirit to strengthen you and equip you, and you need God's mercy to play a role in your life in the context of this ministry will be many. And so I just want to share kind of one of those experiences. I had been a youth minister for all of about 6 months. And I remember it was the day that I was coming back from the Diocesan Youth Conference. And so I was coming back from DYC. I remember I was on my way home. I was running some errands and picking up some groceries, and I got a phone call from a priest here in the diocese telling me that one of my teens, who was not at DYC, but one of my teens that this priest was close to the family, had passed out at the finish line of a race and died. So she ran like a foot race, I think it's the Shamrock Shuffle down in Virginia Beach, and at the finish line, this 16-year-old girl collapsed. She said, "I don't feel well." She collapsed and subsequently passed away. Like a total shock. She had no known health conditions. There was no anything that would lead us to suspect that she had issues, or that this was going to be a dangerous activity for her. It was just an out of the blue, unbelievable experience. And so there I am, and I don't know what to do. And suddenly the phone calls start rolling in quickly. And I'm getting contacted by more and more people. And the interesting things that kind of came about with this whole thing was that people were constantly calling me and looking to me to know what to do, right? And at the time, what was I, like 24 or something, right? Like I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. And so what came was I called my pastor and I said, "Hey, look, this young woman has passed away. People are contacting me. They need something." And his response, my pastor's, is Monsignor Carr, who's in his 70s, and he's been around forever, and he's just a very kind of tried and true priest. And he says, "Well, you just be there for them. Just do what you think is right. Do what God is calling you to do, and just get out of the way." And so I remember saying, "Okay, all right." And so I just started making plans. I just started saying, "Okay, 6:00 at the church tonight. The church will be open. Come, just come, and we'll figure it out from there." And throughout the course of that day in particular, but then the subsequent days, was just over and over and over again moments where I really just had to say, "Come, Holy Spirit," and open my mouth and see what came out. Because there was no rule book, right? There's no playbook for exactly how to deal with what it was that I was facing. Now, nobody had instructions. I have tons of youth ministry friends and tons of people who have been in parishes for 20 and 30 years who had faced this, but it's not the same to hear about it from somebody else as it is to go through it yourself. And I just remember praying to the Holy Spirit, just like, "Come, Lord, come, equip me, give me the words to speak, and give me whatever it is that you need to share with these people tonight." and give me the grace to discern that and let that be proclaimed. And that night, people hung out for 3 or more hours, and we prayed and sang and lit candles, and it was a really beautiful time when no one knows what to do. You'll find as a youth minister that people will look to you for answers, and that's a huge challenge and a huge gift. And so that was definitely my experience, was people constantly looking to me to know what to do in a situation that I was completely unequipped for. But for my confirmation, but for the Holy Spirit, but for the grace of God that enables me in those moments. So that was a kind of amazing thing. And it continues to be. I still talk to families and teens and friends of the girl and the family of that particular young woman that passed away. And I still have relationships and things that have grown from that experience. It's been almost every 2 years there's been a significant death in my community and in my parish of a young person, which I don't know if that's necessarily typical or not, but it's definitely been remarkable. But I have seen time and time again that while I deal with a lot of very difficult things, death is one of the highest profile things that I'll deal with as a youth minister. And one of the most amazing gifts that I was able to offer, and frankly it wasn't me, it was just another moment where it was just, come Holy Spirit, was we had a young man. He was 20 years old when he was diagnosed with cancer, and when he was going through his battle, and when he was in his last days, the group of people that surrounded him, by and large, were teens that had known him through high school. I spent really a lot of hours with that group of people. I am not a counselor. I'm not a therapist, but listening and ministering and being present was a tremendously important thing. And the greatest gift, actually, that I was able to give anyone in that whole process was the young man. His name was Christian. He was going through kind of a slow process of dying. Hey, sweetie pie. Sorry, I got a phone call from my wife. It's important to take the phone calls from your wife, even if you're in the middle of something. But the greatest gift that I was able to give this community people was to tell them when it was time to go. Because we had 18 young adults that were all kind of crammed into the floor of this hospital, and everyone was just kind of waiting for this young man to breathe his last breaths. And people had been basically keeping vigil for days. I was there throughout, but when we came in and the priest came to visit and anointed the young man, and everybody had kind of gone through and said goodbye and visited with him, and everyone just kind of waiting. Eventually, I just kind of went and said, hey, I think everybody, it's time to just go ahead and go home. We've all said goodbye. We've all, shared our love for him. The family knows that you love him. The family is here. But now is just a good time for us to pray and go ahead home and take a little break, because the next few days are going to be long. And that little speech that I gave, and I don't know exactly what I said, but that was kind of the gist of it, that had a tremendous impact. I had a remarkable number of people who thanked me and just really appreciated the fact that one, I had kind of a presence there, but two, that I was able to do the thing that the family couldn't do. It was hard for the family to be able to tell, everybody to go home. But I certainly could. I'm a bit of a jerk. I don't mind doing that. And so that was a real gift and an unexpected thing, and something that, again, I didn't know what I was supposed to do or how to do it, but that made a lot of sense. Those moments matter, and I think the thing that underlies those is one, making sure that we're asking the Holy Spirit to be a part of whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's planning a youth night or setting a schedule for the year, or on retreat, or it's the really difficult moments where somebody is sick or you're facing really in difficult consequences or difficult moments, or really difficult conversation with a family. The number of parents who have come to me and their world has just been shattered because of some choice that their teen has made, or they just came out of the closet, and mom doesn't know what it means to have a gay son, and what is this, what do we do, and how do we go on, and all of those things. In all of those moments, just come Holy Spirit is a wildly effective prayer to offer. The other thing that I would say is probably the best bit of advice that was ever given to me was when I came into the parish. My pastor sat me down. He impressed upon me how important it was that of all the skills that I had, the number one skill, the most important skill I could possibly have, was a pastoral disposition. And what do we mean by that? Like, a pastoral disposition is just to be ministering at all times. That in every conversation that you're having with somebody, you're aware that you are A, representing the church, and B, caring for their heart, right? And that doesn't mean that you are like pretend and fake with the way that you interact with people. Far from it. But it means that you are always looking out for what is the good, and what is God looking to do with this person's heart, right? Where is God leading this moment? How can I help this person? How can I be kind to this person? How can I be charitable? And you will face situations where the last things that you want to be are kind and charitable. But that's what you're being called to be. And that's the job that you are being called to do. And I think the best advice I ever received was to, before anything else, look at every situation through a pastoral lens. How do I care for this person? How do I love them? And sometimes it's loving them with honesty and truth, right? Truth in charity. But nonetheless, that pastoral disposition is super, super important. Whether it be in ministry with teens, or in dealing with parents and families, dealing with the brokenness and abuse and hard situations where you're making phone calls to Child Protective Services and the police, and whether it is confronting a bunch of kids at the Diocesan Youth Conference that are smoking pot in their hotel room, or whether it's dealing with your coworkers, right? In my office, we've had a number of difficult personalities that have come in. And if the question is not, how do I get this person to stop being obnoxious to me? Or how do I stop this person from breathing down my neck? But how do I respond to this person in a way that builds trust and builds charity, and shows them that I respect them, and that, that I'm here to work together with them and not in conflict with them. All of those things boil down to a pastoral disposition. And if you can be pastoral in every conversation, in every situation, I promise you, you will succeed, right? You can be the most disorganized and crazy, young person, or just older person who's still disorganized, whatever it might be. And if, when the angry parent calls and you pick up the phone, and you can have a kind and generous and honest conversation with them, and just really listen to what their hurts are, and what their concerns are, and what their fears are, whatever it might be. If you can be pastoral in that phone call, even if you're at fault, you take ownership of that and just respond in a pastoral way, people are going to love you. People are going to love it. Even if they're mad. It's kind of a beautiful thing. So I do want to emphasize that. Come Holy Spirit, be pastoral. Number 3 is stay in your lane to some extent. I have a lot of interests. I love playing music. I love doing media stuff. I love designing, right? When I would get kind of bored with paperwork and doing the day in and day out work of youth ministry, I would sit down and start designing posters and, graphics and all that kind of stuff. That led me to ultimately taking on basically both youth ministry, confirmation formation, and the communications work at my parish, which is too much. It was too much to take on, all, at least for my skill set. So just always be aware. It's okay to have a varied and a variety of things that you're interested in doing, but be aware of what you are there to do. Be aware of what your parish, your pastor, your finance director, be aware of what they are asking of you and what your job description is. And if that's starting to change gradually over time, that's fine. That's totally okay. Go and have an honest conversation with your business admin or the pastor or whomever it is to say, like, hey, look, I'm doing a ton of work on this, on this communications project, which I love doing, and it's super great, but it's not what you're paying me to do here. So do you want me to continue doing that, or do you want me just kind of be upfront and open, and that will serve you tremendously well. The thing you don't want to happen is you doing your own little projects that are benefiting the parish but are not what you're supposed to be doing, and somebody gets really upset about that. Another kind of note on youth ministry stuff that I would say is, don't do stuff because it's the way it's always been done. And yeah, you might ruffle some feathers. And I think one of the greatest lessons I've learned here at a parish for 9 years now, or whatever it's been, is that that you can ruffle feathers, and if you're right in ruffling feathers, if you're right in changing a dynamic, if you're right in going with a new vision and a new structure and whatever it is, if you are able to bring everybody around and get on board with your vision, or on board with the change, then it'll be worth the change. It'll be worth it. It might be hard in the short term, but don't sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term achievement. So just be prayerful and be considerate and be pastoral in everything that you do, but don't be afraid of change. Another thing that I would mention is consider and figure out what success looks like. What does success look like in God's eyes and in your eyes, right? What are the things, and in your pastor's eyes would probably also be a helpful thing. Pray about that, discern that. For me, I think seeing kids that are active in their faith, and not just active in their faith, but actually like going to confession. And that's kind of a weird metric to really focus in on, but if I have teens that are going to confession on a regular basis, like that's a really good sign that they get it, that they realize the need for forgiveness, that they realize the value of grace, that they realize who God is in their life and who they are in relation to that. And so that's been a tremendous blessing. I think on my bucket list, it's probably like, I would love, very out of like total vanity and my own narcissism, I would love to see vocations come out of my parish. I would love to see kids going to seminary. I would love to see young women joining religious orders and pursuing religious life. I've not seen that happen. I don't know if that will ever happen, and I don't know that I'm setting the right stage for that to happen. But that is kind of one of my goals and one of my dreams. I would love to see that. And frankly, like just as much, I would love to see healthy dating relationships and healthy marriages. I've been around long enough now that the kids that were here when I was a brand new youth minister are now getting married. So if I can look at their weddings and their relationships and see them living holy lives and pursuing holiness, like that's 100% success. Another thing that's always been really helpful is for kids that are like really anti and like they come in, arm's distance, not having it, mom's forcing me to be here. I love those kids. Like those kids, that's great. And it doesn't freak me out. And a kid sits here in my office and tells me that they're gay and like is looking for my eyes to turn into like, $50 or whatever. I love surprising them with understanding. I love surprising them with being compassionate. I love surprising them with truth. I love surprising them with being pastoral. That, and don't do it alone. That's it. Don't do it alone, because it's not going to work. You need help. All right, guys, I'm praying for you. I'm going to talk to you about confirmation in another little video, but that's what I got. This is Dan Harms. I will talk to you all in the future. God bless and welcome to the Diocese.